For most people, to me, it seems like when they set goals, the goal setting experience is very isolated from the rest of their weeks and their days, and there is no bridging those two. It's just a series of, okay, I've got this motivation, I'm excited about it, and then it eventually wanes. And then some time will go by, months will go by, and then whoop, motivation's back and it wanes. And it's just this series of motivated, stop, motivated, stop, motivated, stop. And so what we need to do is not just set goals, but we need to create a system. And if the system doesn't work when you're feeling unmotivated, then the system doesn't work. So we need to make systems that are realistic for us. The other thing that we need to do is we need to have artificial starts. This is something that I read in the book When, I believe it's by Daniel Pink, and he talked about how people get motivated when there are these artificial starts. For example, the new year or a big birthday, people get motivated to actually achieve their goals during these things. So what we're gonna do is, and this is the strategy I've used with my YouTube channel, that I've helped people who want to travel around the world, or multiple books have been written, albums on Spotify. I use these examples all the time. But we're gonna create artificial starts. And one thing that really helps people is, instead of seeing this whole year goal, is we are going to do 12-week sprints. So what we're gonna do today is we're going to actually create an action plan. And I have a free PDF that I will pin in the comments. I'll also have it in the description. And I really think it'd be beneficial in this video in particular that you download that, because I think this video is really not gonna be the same without it, especially it's the final few pages. It's not the very first few pages. But this video is just really not going to be the same if you don't have that. But I want to talk about what makes a complete action plan. Now, when a lot of people set goals, pretty much all they think of is, what do I want to have and what's the habit that's going to get me there? And for small goals, that's completely sufficient. If you think, I want to drink more water, you just have the habit of drinking more water, boom, you're done. If you had, on the other hand, a big goal, I like to think of big goals like climbing Mount Everest. And if you were to just think to yourself, okay, I'm gonna climb Mount Everest, I've got the intention to climb Mount Everest, I'm just gonna show up to the mountain and I'm just gonna climb. I'll just climb as much as I feel like each day. I'll just climb a little bit each day, and I've got the habit of climbing, and that'll be good. No, for big goals, you need to actually have a plan that says, I'm gonna climb this many feet today and I'll get to this camp. And then the next day I'll climb this many feet. And you make a plan with deadlines, because when you're on the mountain and you're tired, you don't want this ability to be like, oh, I'm just gonna go till I feel like it. Because when you go till you feel like it, that's usually gonna shortchange yourself, and you're gonna do much less than you're capable of. You need a deadline that says, I'm gonna go this far. And as you're climbing the mountain and as you're tired, you can see it. You can see the next deadline. Like, I'm almost there, I'm almost there, I'm almost there. When I get there, I can rest. And we need things like that. Now, the plan is not going to go according to plan. If you've heard a lot of like actual climbing Mount Everest stories, we don't make the plan because it's going to go perfectly and we're going to follow it to a T. We try as much as we can, but once we get on the mountain, we're going to have to reevaluate. But it doesn't mean that making the plan wasn't useful in the first place. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an action plan. And you need to know a few different criteria, a few different questions that you can answer each day to know that your action plan is complete and specific. Otherwise, if you have a goal of writing, you might just sit down to write. You say, okay, I'm going to write for an hour. You write a little bit for an hour. The next day you sit down, you're like, oh, let me reread this. I'm going to reread what I wrote. Oh, let me edit that a little bit. The next day again, you sit down. Oh, let me reread this. Oh, let me edit. And before you know it, all you've done is reread your work 800 times and re-edited it 800 times. So we need we need a better benchmark than just, oh, I'm going to sit there for an hour and see how I feel about it. So from the previous video, you should have a very specific yearly goal, and it should have numbers in it that you have 100% control over. So for example, I'm going to write 50,000 words this year. It should not be a goal like, I'm going to have 1,000 subscribers, because that's something that you are reliant on external factors like people to subscribe to you, or money is another example where you're reliant on other people to pay you in your business. Weight loss is another example where you have 100% control over what you eat, and if you go to the gym, you have impact over these specific pounds, but you don't have 100% control over the timeline. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna think about that yearly goal. And maybe by the end of the year, your goal was that you wanted to have the book completely complete, and ideally with a book deal, let's say. What we are going to do is chunk this backward into quarterly benchmarks. And if you're someone who wants to set multiple goals, I will address that in a moment. But if you have a big goal that you think is going to take the entire year, we are going to chunk that back into 4 quarterly benchmarks. Now, at the end of quarter 4, the yearly benchmark is the same thing as the quarterly benchmark. So maybe by the end you want to have the book complete and you want to have it sent off to an editor. Maybe by the end of quarter 3, you want to have it completely edited. Maybe by the end of quarter 2, you want to have it completely rough drafted. And maybe by the end of quarter 1, you want to have it half of the way rough drafted. These are now deadlines that we've given ourselves to give us artificial starts so that we have that thing that we're looking for as we're on the mountain and as we're climbing, we say, this is where I want to go. Now, a lot of times people set yearly goals and they can actually get that done in a quarter. So this is something to think about as we're making this action plan. Did you set it too low, and can you actually get that yearly goal done in a quarter? Now, if you're someone who likes to set multiple different focuses, maybe quarter 1, you focus on a book, and maybe you can get this whole thing done in a quarter. And so quarter 1, you'll focus on the book. Maybe quarter 2, you'll focus on fitness, and you'll have a whole fitness quarter 2. Maybe quarter 3, you go back to your creative goal. Maybe quarter 4, you go to music, or you can hop around like that. The advantage of 12-week goals is they're long enough that you can get a lot done actually in a quarter, but they're short enough to give a sense of urgency so that we have these artificial starts. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna zoom in at the beginning of quarter 1, and we're gonna chunk deadlines for quarter 1. So if you think of quarter 1, we've got the end of January, the end of February, and the end of March. Now, our goal for the end of the quarter was to have half of it drafted. So that's the same thing as our goal for the end of March. So I'm just gonna rewrite it there. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Half drafted. I'll write higher next time. So at this point, maybe we can get a little bit more specific. How much is half of the book? Maybe if you want a book to be 12 chapters, maybe that means you've got 6 chapters rough drafted. Maybe by the end of February, you want 3 chapters rough drafted. So maybe by the end of January, you could just outline, do your research, and have the first chapter drafted. So these now give us benchmarks for the quarter. So what I would do is every quarter, you sit down and you plan out your monthly benchmarks. You just think of, I like to think of it as levels of time. You've got the year, the quarter, the month, the week, and the day. So at the quarter, at the start of the quarter, just go down a level and chunk out monthly benchmarks. Now, the planner that I sell does this all for you. So if you don't want to be thinking about, okay, go up to my bigger vision, because that's part of my process too, is like go up to the bigger vision, go down, chunk it out. You just follow the chunks in the planner and it'll do it all for you. Then you don't have to worry about this. But now what I want to do is I want to zoom in on this first month. Okay, so we're going to take January. And this January happens to have 5 weeks. So I'll put that into 5 results. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, by the end of January, we wanted to have 1 chapter rough drafted. So that's the same as the end of our week 5 result. So maybe the first week, you'll focus on kind of brain dumping your ideas. Now, something that usually happens when people are setting goals, so when they look at it from the yearly level, like, oh, I've got to write a book, it seems really big. As we zoom into the quarter and then we zoom into the month, like here we're looking at weekly benchmarks, there already is not enough work to even be filling this in. And a lot of times I think big goals seem like really nebulous, but then you start zooming in and you're like, it's gonna take me a week to brain dump actually. And so that's where you can reevaluate the plan as we're making this action plan. We're gonna zoom in one more time, and after that, I wanna make sure that we have the 3 qualities of a complete action plan. So then we do it once again. Let's say if the first week you want to brain dump, we're going to make daily benchmarks. And you can kind of decide for yourself, do I want to work on this 5 days a week? Do I want to work on this 3 days a week? If we say maybe at the beginning, you just want to do 2 days that week, then you only need 2 daily benchmarks. If you wanted to work on it 5 days that week, you give yourself 5 benchmarks, which is what I usually do. But as you're starting, you can just start with a couple days a week. You start with 20 minutes, as long as it meets your deadlines and you're the one who's creating the deadlines. And what I always want to remind us of is that these are meaningful things that we're doing because we want to do them. We are making music because it's fun. We're making videos because it's fun. We're writing because it's fun, because it's meaningful, not because someone's telling us we have to. So if at any point you're doing this and you feel like, this seems like, I don't know if I want to do this, we have to really think about, do we really want it? And if we really want it, it's our responsibility to put the structure in place so that it actually gets done, so that we don't have regrets and more apathetic evenings. Come home from work, you just sit on your phone. What we're trying to do is get rid of these apathetic evenings to the point where we look back on the year and like, what did I even do this year? Like, we're trying to actually do the things that we said we were going to do. So you can pick how many days you want to work on it. Let's say you want to work on it 2 days. Okay, it's just gather the materials. Let's say gather your old writing and organize it and brain dump day 2. Okay, so we're almost done. So to know that you have a good action plan, it needs 3 things. One, each day you need to know what you're doing. And this lays out that first step. What am I doing? Okay, this day I'm gathering my old writing. This day I'm brain dumping. Two, you need to know when you're doing it, and it needs to actually be put on a calendar. So this is gonna go later on in the series. There'll be videos about how do we rearrange different things in our life, how do we minimize other tasks so that we actually have time for things that we find meaningful. How do we minimize the things that are not meaningful to us so that we can maximize the things that are meaningful to us. But as just a preview, I see the calendar and the to-do list as one and the same. And I don't just put nouns on the calendar, but I put verbs on the calendar. And I see it just as a to-do list. So there's only one place that my brain needs to check. And the planner outlines how to use the monthly messy dashboard system and all these different systems. So you need to know when you're going to do it, and it needs to be put on a calendar. Now, when you first start with something, like if you first start writing, for example, maybe just pick one time of day for the first week, but just see it as an experiment. So, okay, I'm gonna try writing at 8 p.m. because I think I work better at night. You might work 8 p.m. the first week, and it worked in some ways, but in some ways it didn't work because maybe so-and-so was calling you and you're like, wow, I'm really busy at 8 o'clock. I actually had a work event at 8, that I wasn't getting home till 8, or I was too tired or whatever. So the next week you try 6. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go to work. As soon as I get home, I'm gonna work on it. And that might work for some things and not for other things. You're like, okay, that was really good for momentum because I was in work mode. I continued, I just got right in work mode. But I found that I was just kind of tired, and so it didn't really work for that. So the next week you try 6 a.m. You're like, I'm not a morning person, but you know what? It actually really worked because I didn't have decision fatigue yet in the day. I was tired, but I had some coffee. It was nice. No one was interrupting me, and that actually worked. So you're just seeing it as an experiment. And something that I always tell people that I coach, because I've had clients where we've done coaching sessions for 12 weeks. The first week, it doesn't go according to plan, and that's completely normal. The second week, it goes like a little bit better, but not fully according to plan. The third week goes awful. It doesn't really work at all. The fourth week, then it starts working, and things get in momentum. And then you've seen what time of day works. You figured out plan Bs. This is what I'm going to do. So as you get started, don't expect the first month to go perfectly. And what I always tell people is, if something doesn't go perfectly, that doesn't mean you've got to quit and throw away the whole thing. It means you just make a plan B. And I find that some people, I mean, myself included, my husband included, like we really struggle, like plan A didn't work. What am I going to do now? And we need to just be in the mindset, plan A is not going to work. At some point, plan A is going to fail. It didn't mean that it was useless to create plan A. It's not useless to make the plan to climb Mount Everest because we need some constraints, but we need to understand that there's gonna be a plan B at some point. Which, by the way, I will talk about in later videos. How do you reevaluate this plan? The third thing you need to know for an action plan, besides just what you're doing that day and when you're doing it, is you need to know how you're gonna know when you're done. A lot of the whole point of making these action plans is we don't want to just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to be in the habit of writing, and I sit down for an hour and then I just sit there and reread my work forever, or I edit and edit and edit. We need to know when we're done. When is it good enough? And for a lot of creative projects in particular, it's really difficult to know when is good enough good enough. In the previous video, I just talked about how to like believe in yourself or believe in your work, or like if you think your work is bad. And so I think that really ties in here as well. But like for me, when I was a math teacher and I was working on YouTube as kind of like a side hustle at the time, I was working at a coffee shop from 6 to 7, and then at 7 I had to go into work and teach. And so I had a very limited amount of time. And so my criteria was, you know, this is what I'm working on for the day. This is the result I need to have. I'm gonna give myself an hour, and when it's done, it's done. And the next session I have, I need to be ready to work on this. And so it's basically, for me, it was just a strategy of done is better than perfect. I'm not gonna spend time rereading my work. I'm not gonna spend time poring over and rereading my work and editing it to death. Done is better than perfect. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And we cannot sustain the motivation if we're constantly just going so slow and rechecking our work. We need to get things done so that we experience the reward of it. So for me, it was, this is what I'm doing today. I have an hour to do it. I'm not allowing the time to spill over. I'm not allowing this task to go over into the next day. When the hour is up, or when the work is done, that's when I'm done, but I'm not gonna go beyond an hour. This series is going on all throughout the month of December. Every couple days, a video will be coming out working on building toward our big goal. Now, the thing is, we have made an action plan, and part of an effective action plan is we know how to reevaluate it. So in upcoming videos, I'm gonna talk about a routine for how do we reevaluate the plan when things are going wrong on Mount Everest. How do you reevaluate when you get behind schedule or you procrastinate or something comes up? What do we do then? So check that out. Check out the free resource in the description. Check out the planner. I will leave the playlist for the series in the description as well, and an end screen here somewhere. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.